Hey guys, I hope you're having an awesome day. I'm out here at Demonstration Forest in British Columbia. Just a wonderful trail. It's wide, but it's also, you know, it's kind of rocky and there's some gravel. It gets a little bit shadowy in here, especially when there's some clouds out. So I'm loving this bike because it's like the perfect setup for this. We've got these little bit wider tires, give you some stability, some comfort. We've got these really bright lights. This is Lezyne, 65 lux, 210 lumens on that thing. That's a nice upgrade. And then back here, dual LED rear light, really well protected. I've looked at these DŌST bikes before. It was almost 2 years ago now. We're looking at the Kope right here, but this is the new CVT, continuously variable transmission. It's actually using an Enviolo CVP, continuously variable like hub, a planetary hub. Inside there are these orbs and this traction fluid, and so you can shift on this ramp, right? It's not like gears where you traditionally have different sprockets of different sizes. There's like this ramp inside, and what's really cool about that is you can shift at standstill, just like this. So I'm actually shifting gears, and it's just super clean. We don't have a derailleur hanging down. You might also notice we've got a Gates carbon belt drive CDX. It's got this center track design, so it always stays on track, and a nice kind of almost like a guard here. It's an outer guard. We don't really need the inner guard because it's pretty close to the frame and we have the center track. But what that's going to do is create a little bit of protection down here so you're not going to get rock strikes and stuff. We've also got a nice chain cover or belt cover in this place. We don't have any slap guards or anything because we don't need it. So what I'm trying to get across here is like super clean, almost completely maintenance free, easy to shift at standstill, no derailleur, but a little bit of extra weight because we do have that planetary hub back here. This bike weighs about 67 pounds, which is kind of a lot. But then when you look at it, we have a really high capacity battery, 48 volts, 14 amp hours. So it's a lot, right? You're going to get extra good range because it's a mid-drive. We're not using a hub motor. You're going to give that drivetrain a mechanical advantage. So the motor is going to work less hard when you're climbing because you can kind of shift down than if it was a hub motor. So these bikes tend to cost a little bit more. When you're cutting the frame in order to get the belt on, you have to make a cut right here. This requires a lot of custom engineering, and especially to give you a higher weight capacity. So I think this is like 285 pounds of weight limit on this, which is higher than average. Mostly I'm seeing like 250 pounds for other kind of standard e-bikes. 100 pounds of capacity on this rear rack. I mean, look at this thing. It's got like a pannier hanger here, so you can clip on your own. I think DŌST has some of their own branded panniers. Another clip system down here, so you can keep it from like rattling all around. Really nice plastic fenders with multiple connection points, so they're not going to rattle and stuff. Look at this. It's almost overkill. I mean, this thing is really designed so you could take it off-road. Another plastic fender up here. I mentioned safety before, and that's a big deal to me, especially if you're someone who's doing a little bit of trail riding during the day, but maybe you're commuting during the week and you're using this thing to get to and from work. This bike, their new marketing lingo is sort of like safety through simplicity, right? And hopefully that shines through when you look at the simplicity of the drivetrain, being able to shift at standstill and having plenty of power. I don't want to forget to talk about this. I mean, this thing is rated at 120 Newton meters. That's incredibly high. 750 watts nominal. I think it peaks over 1,000 watts. So that's great for a mid-drive system. It's definitely at the higher end. But the interesting thing is, can the drivetrain handle that? Can the frame handle that? So that's what I was talking about, this higher weight rating with the racks and everything. If you choose to do a front rack, I think that's rated at like 25 pounds, still pretty good, and they did a good job. You can connect it right here to the steer tube, so it's not going to create any steering compromises here. You're not going to dump the basket as you park. You do need to reroute the light, and there's a mounting position on that front rack if you do that. So they've really thought this thing through. While we're up here, I mean, we're looking at an RST air suspension fork. Nice coating here. So this is lighter weight than a spring, usually steel stanchion fork. This is probably aluminum alloy. And we've got some adjustments here so you can raise the air pressure depending on your body weight. And then we've got compression adjust over here with a nice clicker. I gotta love that. Quick release up front. Awesome hydraulic disc brake system on this, by the way. 180 millimeter rotors, dual piston calipers, 3-finger brake levers. Of course, they're branded. So the point being, when you have a bike that's a little bit heavier, a little bit more capable, you definitely want to be able to stop. You want to be able to move when you need to, and this bike kind of has it all. I was excited to show you the box that comes with the bike because they've done such a good job with this thing. I mean, really polished. It's nice to see the branding, but also packed really well. These are the pedals. They're kind of that aluminum alloy, wide, good traction. Definitely a fan of that, especially if you end up going off-road. It gets a little slick or something. Actually comes with the pedal wrench, which is nice. Get those on easily. This branded tool, and this is nicer than average. I mean, I've seen the really basic tool kits, but it was specially set up to have all of the correct tools that you need to adjust the bike. And it's just, you know, again, really good attention to detail. Some stickers here based on how you set the bike up, since you can adjust the speeds and depending on how you use it. This is really, it's a versatile bike. I like to see that. That's another thing it's kind of rare, and it just, a lot of thought went into this. I love the charger. This thing is very compact. It's fairly lightweight, about 1.5 pounds. It's 2 amps, which is, you know, that's kind of standard. That's what I usually see in the industry from companies. A lot of times the charger is a little bit bulkier. This one feels really solid. It's polished. It's got the branding, of course. And they have a 4 amp charger that's optional. If you buy that, it's extra. It's in addition to the 2 amp charger. But for a bike that could potentially have 2 batteries for that long range, being able to fill them both quickly is nice. And I imagine you could just leave this compact charger, maybe one at home, put the other one at work, or one in a backpack that you take with you. I think that's really great. So it's just really well done. And of course, here are the keys. To me, it's so cool that they have a couple different colors, but it's more than just the color. The high step is a 19-inch frame. The step through is a 17.5, so it's shorter reach, lower standover, just a bit more approachable. And then it gives you some options. You know, it kind of feels like a his and hers setup, but that is still fairly neutral. And if you're a shorter guy, or if you just want that step through, I feel like it's, you know, it's well done. It's professional looking. Oh, I also wanted to mention they both have a 22 tooth, 54 tooth on the drivetrain down there. It's sort of the same setup, same wheel sizes and everything. They both have the secondary battery option, and this is how it comes packaged. I mean, look at this. Like, talk about overkill. They really do a good job. So this opens up. It's like a really nice toolbox. We've got the secondary battery here. This is 48 volt, 10.5 amp hour, so it's a little bit lower capacity, but when you combine it with the 14 amp hour main battery pack, you get over the kilowatt hour. It's got some keys, so you do have kind of a second set of keys connecting it to the bike. Here's the plug. It connects right there, so it's just perfectly positioned. The cable's not like wrapping around the side. It's not going to get snagged in the pedals, the cranks, or anything like that. And then you can take the foam out of this thing, and then you can use this box as like a little carrying tote, and you can bungee it, or, you know, maybe zip tie it to this rear rack. I think that's kind of cool, sort of recycling. And then they're just being extra careful with the battery. This is what it actually looks like, the track that I was talking about. So there's the secondary locking port. To me, those are some of the trade-offs. It's like you have to plug in these batteries independently, and you have to lock and unlock them independently. It's a little bit of an extra step, but if you do opt for that optional 4 amp charger that's a little faster, you could charge simultaneously in that case. So there are 3 bolts. You just mount it onto that down tube. It's very secure. It's designed to be just really clean, efficient. You can see here, if we put this on the bike, got the little power button there, and then the charging port is on the left-hand side, but it's still high up. It's not down there by the crank arm. So, you know, I think this was maybe more of a happy accident, but I just love that everything's high up. You're not bending way down and bumping your head on the handlebars and stuff. There's the tool again. This is one of the optional accessories. And then in addition, we have that front basket. It's got the DŌST logo on it, of course, and we've got the cable routing, really well thought out. And then there's the holster for that folding lock and the optional bottle mount on the other side. So you really have a lot of options for accessories on these bikes, you know, and just the way that it's set up. Again, 25-pound max weight for the front rack, 100 pounds for the rear rack. I still can't believe it. Like, I look at that thing, I'm like, really? That's significant. You could get one of those like Thule Next maxi seats. They kind of like clamp on from the sides and bring your kids around. You can get some of those panniers or a basket. When I look at this bike, it's really well thought out. They've gone through everything. Let me try to hit a couple of other cool little upgrades. Really nice, very comfortable saddle with the handles, so you can lift the bike up a little bit. 30.9 millimeters on this, a little bit thicker, and then this tapers off and gives you some stiffness, so there's not a lot of frame flex. We've got the internally routed cables. We've got this nice badge, so if you don't get that optional front rack, we've got some zip ties here, but also this nice cable wrapping just to look good, to make this thing feel great. The tires here, these are Schwalbe Super Moto-X, really good. They've got puncture protection and they've got this reflective sidewall stripe. So that's awesome. I mentioned before they're a little bit wider, 27.5 by 2.4, and that's gonna give you the comfort and the stability when you're off-road. Because if you look at the tread, this isn't really a mountain bike tread, it's more of a hybrid tread, but it's still capable on a trail like this if you want to do it. And the comfort of that suspension fork, you can also get a suspension seat post. Look at the gusset here, the extra, all the stiffness and stuff I'm talking about. If you're someone who's kind of got the hip sensitivity or knee sensitivity, DŌST also has a model called the Drop. And it's kind of the same bike, except instead of being a 19-inch frame like this, that one's like 17.5. So it's a little bit shorter reach, definitely lower standover height. Although you can see that they've sloped this top tube here. I think it's the same price. So if you just get the regular Kope or Drop, they're gonna have like a cassette and a derailleur and everything. And they're not going to have the belt drive. I think that's like $31.99, whereas this is $39.99. You spend a little bit more, but you get a really nice system. So this is a direct-to-consumer product. So when you buy this, it's getting shipped to you, and it's like pretty much built. You might have to twist the handlebars or whatever, but they have really good customer support and some great videos teaching you how to get this set up and answering your questions and stuff. Again, this is the high torque rated CVP from Enviolo, rated at 120 newton meters. That's something that came up, you know, in my mind. It's like there's so much power running through this thing. It's great that Enviolo offers a hub that can handle it. And this thing, it's like the N380, 380% gear ratio. It's somewhat equivalent to 11 to 42. I think it's actually like 11 to 43 or something, if you were to compare it to a traditional derailleur and cassette. So that's what you're getting. It is mechanical shifting. This is the twist shifter here with the infographic. And when I do that, you can see the movement happening back here. So that's sort of how that works. Might be time to get into some of the display in the cockpit. I love that we've got these rubber ergonomic grips, a low-rise handlebar. It's not too wide, but it is a little bit wider, which is what you see on most mountain bikes and stuff. Gives you a little bit more control over that heavier front wheel, the taller, you know, wider. It's just a little bit more control. But they've given you this Ergotec 5, which means higher quality, extra durable, tougher, adjustable angle stem, 0 to 90 degrees, and it's a riser stem. So one of the things I noticed with that optional front basket is that they have bottle cage mounting points, or for like a folding lock or something, you can mount those right up here, and it's far down enough because of this stem height that your bottle doesn't collide with like the brake lever and the handlebar. Really well thought out, and I like that they did that. Like, if you don't get the extra battery pack here, you can use this for mounting a bottle cage if you want, but it's kind of nice to have it up here, have an option like that. Just, it's great to have additional mounting points in general. So I'm really glad that they did that. And then this stem, I mean, it is rated for higher speed riding, heavier bikes, heavier duty. They didn't skimp out on that thing. The display is pretty nice, pretty big here. The grips are locking and everything. So just coming around to this other side here, go ahead and turn the bike on. Press the power button there. DŌST, of course, it's kind of branded. I love that we've got the battery percentage up at the top. We got a clock, and we got our current speed here. It's in kilometers per hour right now. It starts in assist level 1, which means the throttle is hot. And the throttle can give you full power. So you can, you know, it's variable speed. If you press it just a little, you get a little bit of power. If you press it all the way, you're just going to zip right off and climb that hill or catch up with your friend. Plus and minus navigates through the different levels of assist all the way up to 5, and then it kind of flashes. If you go down to 0, there's no assist or anything. You're basically just using this like a, you know, a normal cycle computer. Plus you've got the lights on the bike for safety. And I'm going to go ahead and activate those lights here. If I hold the light button for a second, you'll actually see the display dim, and then there's a light icon. There's those 2 LEDs I was talking about in the rear, really visible, and then the headlight. You know, some of these lights have like windows on the sides. This one doesn't have that, but the lens is pretty much right at the edge. And I love that it's got the heat sinks and stuff. This is a really nice light, and it illuminates the path much more than some of the cheaper lights. I mean, it's still fairly light out right now, but I can see that, and I'm able to aim it down to actually hit the path. It's raised enough that the fender isn't clipping it. It's very functional. It's not just for appearance. Another cool highlight is that we have a USB charging port on the base of the display here. 5 volts on that. Nice to have if you've got like maybe your phone or GPS or additional, like a little mini speaker or something. You can tap into that really high battery capacity if you opt for that second pack. Okay, so back over here we have I, which changes some of the readouts. We got trip distance right now, odometer, max speed, average speed, range. Range is pretty cool because if you adjust the different levels of assist, it dynamically updates. So 112 kilometers with a full battery here based on like my recent rides and stuff. I think that's so cool. If we go up to level 5, 43 kilometers. So yeah, you can see there's a big difference depending on how much power you're drawing from that motor to how far you can go. And then calories, that's kind of neat. Time, that's like trip time, trip distance, and back to odometer. So that's pretty much it. This reminds me like of a car display. I mean, it's color, it's really nice. It's very big. It's centered here and it's positioned over the stem. It's not sticking way up high. So it feels somewhat durable. I mean, to me, this bike is kind of like it's a fancy SUV. Like, yeah, you can take it off-road. It's capable, but it's also really comfortable and it's refined. And the last piece here is, let's see, I think if I hold minus for just a second, we get walk mode, which is really great if you've got a heavier bike like this and maybe you're just in an area where you want to maybe hop off the bike. It's just crowded, or you're going through some foliage or across a park, and walk mode is a nice thing. I'm glad they kept that. And then if we hold, actually double tap the I button, there we go. We get into the display settings. So we can go up and down here, change the units. I'm gonna go ahead and change that to imperial, so miles per hour. Change the brightness. That's so nice so you don't get blinded by the display if you're riding in evening conditions. Max pedal assist, percentage for like the state of charge, the battery, the wheel diameter, all kinds of things. And then speed limit, which is really nice. So we're in Canada. I have it set for 20 miles per hour. This would be a class 2 electric bike because we do have the throttle. But again, you can take the throttle off. You can make it class 1 if you want. Sensitivity, password, set the clock. Lots of good stuff. I like it when bikes are kind of open source like this. And these batteries, I think, are made by Reenshin, which is a company I've seen before. That's what the key says when you actually insert it. So I think that's about it. I'm just going to hop on the bike, stow that kickstand. Oh, and I should say, this thing is so cool. It's actually tool-free adjustable. So in addition to all the cool tools and stuff you get with this bike, you could just be out there on the side of a hill like I am here, and you can adjust this thing just real time. This is awesome. Like, I feel like all kickstands should be like this. And of course it's clear of the left crank arm. You're not getting pedal lock or anything. They've taken care of all of those little details just perfectly. So I stow that kickstand. I'm in the highest level of assist, which is, it's pretty peppy. I'm gonna kind of turn the bike and do throttle for a minute. There we go, nice and smooth. Okay, heading into a hill here for a second. There we go, nice and smooth. It's actually fairly quiet considering the amount of power that's coming out of this thing. I mean, we just zipped right up that hill. There's some more. There we go. I've taken it down to 0 just to pedal it, kind of get a feel for the bike. Yeah, tracking really nicely, feeling very smooth. I can shift gears. So right now, see, I'm pedaling pretty fast. And then if I arrow this down, there we go. Now it's slow, so that would be for hitting those higher top speeds. I'll go ahead and do the throttle again from standstill. Quite good. At these higher RPMs, you hear the motor a little bit more because it's rotating quickly. But man, you just zip right through. Okay guys, I'm gonna do the third person shots here so you can see what it looks like to have a rider on the bike. I'm just gonna hop on this thing. I'm gonna be riding in assist level 3, but of course I got the throttle. I like to start off with the throttle sometimes. so much travel, really smooth on the suspension. 100 millimeters right there. Yeah, no problem, just ride right up the curb. A bit of off-road. Nice. I'm gonna do a hill test here too. So the real test for a hill is you kind of like stop right before the hill and then see if you can make it up. That's pretty good. I mean, this is a steep hill. Like this is, you know, it's quite steep. And it's interesting because the tread on this is sort of, it's like hybrid, you know, we don't have these big knobs or anything. And I kind of slid the tire a little bit, like locking the brakes on the wet grass. But they've been handling really well on the gravel and off-road. I think it's because they're, you know, 2.4 inches wide. They're a little bit wider. They give you that extra traction, bigger contact patch. And then 27.5, it's a lower attack angle, so it smooths the ride out. But it's not 28, so they kind of leave a little bit of room for like a taller, fatter tire. To me, these are special. They're really kind of a highlight in the bike world because they're combining things that I don't really see from other companies. And yeah, 4,000 US is a lot, but for what you're getting, it still kind of feels like a value. And I think that's sort of because they do the direct to consumer and they're sort of a smaller company. They're really hustling. For the full written review on this bike, including all of the hand measured specs about length, width, standover height, all that stuff, head on back to ElectricBikeReview.com. There's a comparison tool so you can compare this to a couple of years ago when I reviewed the non-CVT, the one with the derailleur and stuff. You could sort of compare them there. You can also check out the forums and see what the owners are saying because they've owned these. They've actually experienced the customer service and stuff. For me, that's been another highlight, but it's really only what I've heard secondhand. I don't own one of these bikes. I just take them out, do my best to review them and show you and tell you what I'm seeing. I love you guys. I hope you have fun out there riding. We'll see you next time.